Hello and welcome to the Crimson Misery Podcast, episode 39. My name is Will Rainbolt. Hope you all are doing well. It is March 9th, 2025, and we are less than a week away from March Madness. We are 6 days, 23 hours almost from the brackets getting revealed. First the men's and then the women's will happen after that. So it's really exciting. A lot of action happened this weekend. It was the final week of the regular season on the men's side, and then the women's side were the conference tournaments. Most of them have concluded, so I'm going to get into that first. But before I get into any of that, if you all are listening on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts, consider rating the show 5 stars. If you are listening on YouTube, like, subscribe, comment down below, and let's get it right into it because we have so much to get to. And the episodes are just going to keep going as as March Madness approaches. So I'm really excited for that. Let's get started with the ACC tournament. This was a bit of a surprise, although Duke is a really, really good team. I was really surprised to see them beat both Notre Dame in the semifinals and then North Carolina State in the championship game rather convincingly. I mean, as convincingly as you can beat Notre Dame, I would say. Um, because Duke, with their defense, were able to hold Hannah Hidalgo and Olivia Miles in check. I think Olivia Miles only had 10 points for Notre Dame in that semifinal game. Hidalgo did have 23, but I think only like 8 or 9 points came in the second half. So Notre Dame was pretty much held, their firepower was pretty much held in check. And that was even without a strong game from Reagan Richardson. That's because the budding star of this tournament, Oluchi Akinanwa, had 14 points for Duke in the semifinal game. And then in the championship game, she had 22 points, 10 rebounds for Duke. That was a pretty incredible performance. Same with Ashlyn Jackson, who had 22 for Duke, hit three threes. Akinanwa also hit three threes. And they were able to hold NC State, especially with their three-headed monster in Isaiah James, Zoe Brooks, and Sonia Rivers. Um, no one else was really scoring outside of them. So even though they were all in double figures, it was also a pretty inefficient game for them. So they ended up combined. I think they went 21 for 47 overall in this game. So not a great shooting percentage, and Duke was able to take advantage of that. And yeah, congratulations to Duke. Really, really was surprising, but like Duke may have just played themselves up to a three seed. I mean, it's going to be a tough call because you also have TCU and Oklahoma in the mix. Maybe you knock Oklahoma to a 4. I know I was praising Oklahoma before, but I know just because they ended up losing yesterday was I mean, especially because NC State and Notre Dame are both so good, it's going to be a really tough call. I would not I would not like to be the one to make that decision. Um, but I'll get into some other results really quickly before discussing the bracketology. Um, UConn and Creighton are both meeting in the Big East Championship game that will be tomorrow, Monday. Uh, I believe it's the only major conference um, that isn't that has not concluded their conference championship. So they will meet tomorrow. Creighton defeated Seton Hall 73 to 50 or to 44, sorry, and then UConn be defeated uh, where the hell did that score? Yeah, defeated Villanova 82 to 54. So I'm expecting UConn to win. I don't think, even though Creighton is a really good basketball team, I'm just not. I just don't think they're going to be able to beat UConn. So, yeah, Sarah Strong had another really good game. She's been doing really well as of late. 20 points, 16 rebounds. And when other players can score outside of Paige Beckers, that's going to be a very, very difficult team to beat. Um, yeah, and let's move on to one of the games I was really excited to see. South Carolina, they are getting their mojo back, man. They are getting their mojo back. Um, 64 to 45 over number one Texas. I thought this game would be way, way closer because also because both teams split during the teams split during the regular season, and in this game it was all South Carolina. Like they just looked so much better. Even though Malaysia Fulwiley did not have a great game, I mean South Carolina as a whole didn't really have a great shooting night, but it didn't matter because they held Madison Booker and Roy Harmon and Taylor Jones in check. They were the only ones for Texas who did anything, and they only combined for 38 points of the 45. So no one else was really doing anything. But Chloe Kitts was pretty much the hero in this game. Had 15 points, Tessa Johnson 14, Joyce Edwards with 11. So if those players for UConn can get go or for UConn for South Carolina to get going, um, then I think Don Staley at least has another Final Four team because right now South Carolina is clicking. No, they did not have a great shooting night, and I'm still not certain that they should be starting Raven Johnson over someone like Mylasia Fulwiley or even Tessa Johnson for that matter. But I'm not Don Staley. I do not I do not make those decisions for a reason. So, but that's just like I know that's what a lot of people are expressing. So I am definitely in agreement there. So South Carolina again, Texas is still a number one seed, but I think South Carolina moves up to the one line as well at this point. Um, Even though that is another really difficult decision. A lot of that was going to be based on the UCLA USC game, and lo and behold, UCLA gets their revenge. I It looked like USC was going to run away with it again because the first half was everything the first two matchups were, right? USC was just hitting everything. Juju Watkins could not be stopped. Kiki Iriafen. I'm not like I've heard it pronounced both ways, right? I've heard it Iriafen, which I believe is the correct pronunciation, but I've also heard Iriafen. So I'm not 100% sure which pronunciation it is. I believe it's Iriafen though. So, but then in the second half, UCLA completely flipped it around. They remembered, oh yeah, we have one of the best defenders in college basketball in Lauren Betts. We should probably use her. Oh yeah, she can also score. Oh my gosh, we should start going to her. They finally started getting her one on one with the USC bigs, especially Iria Finn, and they were finally starting to get USC pressured, and they were getting Juju Watkins in foul trouble, and they really started to get going, whereas USC could not find anything offensively. Even though Juju Watkins at 29, she was only 9 of 28 from the floor, 2 of 8 from 3. It was a pretty off shooting night for her overall. And then on top of that, USC did not hit a field goal, I believe, in the first 8.5 minutes of the fourth quarter. That is what doomed them because even though they were trying to make it a game, UCLA pretty much won it with that because London Jones and Kiki Rice were starting to hit their shots. Lauren Betts, they started going to her, as I said. They were able to get that rhythm going, and UCLA does get their revenge against USC that I still have. By the way, I still have USC as my national champion that I picked. I'm going to stick with that. But that is a tough call to make for who's the final one. So if I had to guess, it would be UCLA or yeah, the number one overall seed might I don't know honestly at this point, but South Carolina I think definitely clinched a one with the win over Texas. I think Texas, despite the loss, is still a one, and then probably you could make an argument that both UCLA and USC are ones too, because USC only has 3 losses, but they also have 2 wins over UCLA. They and then UCLA, their only 2 losses again were to USC. So yeah, I think who they just beat. So yeah, as much as it's a difficult decision to leave UConn off the one line at this point. There's a real chance that they might be left off the one. Um, but again, I would not want to make that call, to be honest with you. Right now, Charlie Cream has them as a two. Um, and again, I know they're ranked third in the country, but the AP poll does not does not correspond to what seed you get. I know I used to think like that, but the more I've watched college basketball, the less that has the less that has come about. So moving on, I wanted to shout out South Dakota State, 25th in the country, having a fantastic season, 16-0 in the Summit. Ended up winning the Summit League championship over Oral Roberts, 84 to 68. Paige Meyer had 26 points, 9 assists. So congratulations to South Dakota State. Will it matter who they play in the NCAA tournament? Sure. I just there's so many times where teams with great records on the women's side get in, and it just does not seem to matter because the major conference teams are just usually so much better. Um, as I said, like there was only one upset last year, or there was only one double digit seed that ended up making it past the first round, and that was Middle Tennessee over Louisville. So I'm not sure if it will matter, but like that's still a really cool story. And I like teams that are sort of those underdogs, but still had a really good year in their conference, making the tournament, winning the regular season title, going undefeated, and then winning their conference championship. Like that's incredible. So and then in a Big 12 gauntlet that has been kind of I feel like has been kind of underrated, even though they're not ranked very highly. Um, TCU defeated Baylor in the Big 12 championship. That game they actually just wrapped up after they defeated West Virginia in the semifinals. They ended up defeating Baylor 64 to 59. And then this is a TCU team that can be pretty scary with Haley Van Lith, Sedona Prince, Madison Connor, Donovan Hunter. Like they have so many really good players on their team, especially with their starting lineup, that if their firepower does not get held in check, they can be really good. And the resurgence of Haley Van Lith after that pretty poor year at LSU, it's been a really good resurgence, and she is with a team that actually it fits more her skill profile, and like Louisville, like the Louisville version of Haley Van Lith is coming back. So that's pretty good to see, to be honest. So, and again, when you have Sedona Prince, it's definitely definitely a plus to have. Um, and at the same time, for Baylor, also still an interesting team to watch out for. I feel like at the same time, I haven't been incredibly impressed with Baylor in the games I've seen them in. I do like Arinette Vonleh, the sister of Noah Vonleh, um, but I'm not like if they get the wrong matchup, like if they do get a South Dakota State, for example, I'll be very interested to see that sort of matchup. Because I feel like a team like South Dakota State could do pretty well if given the opportunity against maybe one of the Big 12 teams, as I said before. So I'll be very interested to see how that ends up going. So yeah, once again, yeah, UConn and Creighton are playing tomorrow. That'll be at 7 o'clock on FS1. A couple other quarterfinal games, some semifinals in other conferences like the Horizon and the Southland, the Sun Belt, Mountain West is happening. San Diego State trying to push on for their for a potential NCAA tournament bid. I believe if yeah, they're not currently in the tournament, but with a surprised with a 22-9 record. But I believe is UNLV in the field? UNLV? Yeah, they're currently in 11. Okay. So that's the current look in the Mountain West, and then who would be the automatic qualifier in that group? That would be looking at this. I believe it's crazy to see Green Bay as well in the. I'll get to Green Bay on the men's side as well because this is my another case for why Doug Gottlieb should be extended. Those jokes are not going away. Trust me. This is gonna continue to happen. I'm just saying. Yeah, right now I don't see who the automatic qualifier of the Mountain West would be at this point in time. So seriously, it doesn't say on here, and I wish yeah, again, Indiana currently after losing to USC, I should probably talk about them. I'll get to the men's game in a second. But yeah, they're currently in the last four byes. They should be safely in. They would play Vanderbilt. Um, if Charlie Cream's bracketology was correct, then they'd also be in Notre Dame's region. So that would be a very interesting matchup to see. We'll see. I'm not sold on it, but being a 10 seed would be a pretty interesting seed to get, especially with a Notre Dame team that has been struggling. I'm yeah, I'm very curious to see how that works out. So, and then again, I'm just not seeing the for some reason it's not showing me like the Mountain West. Um, who the auto bid would be. I would guess it's UNLV, but also um, this is also an easy solution. There's also an easy solution to this. So yeah, let's go ahead and check. Yeah, it would be UNLV, but it doesn't have automatic qualifier on it. That's really weird. Okay, well I was right. So anyway, so we have those conferences. We also have the West Coast Conference, Gonzaga, as well as I believe there was also where the hell is it? It keeps disappearing. Um, yeah, Portland as well. They're definitely going to be the automatic qualifier if they beat both Washington State and Gonzaga, which is looking pretty likely. So, same time, we still have some women's mid-major conferences in the in the mix. So, keep your eye out on those. Still a lot of action that happened. Very interested to see how this will affect especially the top seeds. Again, I would not want to make the decision for the top four seeds in each region. It's not a job I would want. So anyway, that being said, let's move on to the men's side. We have, as I said, some auto bids that have been clinched, and also the final weekend of the regular season um, for the men's side. So I'm very excited to talk about this because let's actually let's get started with the auto bids. So uh kind of going backwards a little bit um into the conference tournaments, but we do have some winners already. We have Omaha, who did clinch. They play tonight technically. uh they do play tonight at 9, but they have already clinched because St. Thomas, Minnesota is ineligible for the NCAA tournament because it is a dumb rule. I don't like it. Whenever you go from Division Two to Division One, you have a period where you cannot, where you're ineligible for the NCAA tournament due to the transition. So unfortunately, St. Thomas, Minnesota will not be in the NCAA tournament, even if they did win. So Omaha, even though they did win the Summit League, automatically gets the bid to the NCAA tournament. They have already clinched. So I guess, yeah, even though I don't like that rule, congratulations to Omaha. Probably a 16. Their record is not anything special, but it'll be interesting to see out of the Summit League. And moving on, we have High Point, 81-69 over Winthrop. They win the Big South Championship, clinching the auto bid. And this is a team that look like watching their games recently, they have they have some pretty good talent, especially coming off the bench with Bobby Pettiford with 17 and also Kiza Gifa having 16 for High Point. This is a team with quite a bit of depth. They bring a lot of players off the bench, and with that, like High Point, if they get the right matchup, especially a lot of people were talking like maybe a High Point versus Michigan matchup because High Point right now, if I were to see where they're currently selected, they are currently seated 13th according to Joe Lenardi. That if especially if they get a matchup with a team like Michigan as a four, but I don't even think Michigan should be a four at this point. I think they should be lower than that, to be honest. Um, Wisconsin as a four, I still think that's a bit too high for Michigan, for Wisconsin, sorry. Michigan's a six currently, but currently they would be playing Purdue. That's a matchup that could be pretty problematic for Purdue. And I really like High Point is definitely a sleeping upset pick. So I just wanted to get that out there because watching their games, like especially in the last couple weeks, knowing that they were likely to win their conference title and their record, especially, that's something that should be on everyone's mind when filling out brackets, especially uh, like whenever the brackets come out on Sunday. So again, very excited for that. Congratulations to High Point. Um, I did. I'm just gonna start on Sunday, even though that's technically not what I usually do. But there's just so much stuff I want to talk about. So Nebraska went from they went from I remember this. I believe they were in the last four buys, and Nebraska is not even going to make the Big Ten tournament, which is crazy. I mean, this is what a fall off. What a fall off. Nebraska literally had all they had to do was beat Iowa, right? And let's see. So Nebraska currently is in among the first four out. They're toast. They can't do anything now because their season's over. At least at least in the regular season and because yeah, now they can't do anything. They're not going to the Big Ten tournament. So um, yeah, rest in peace, Nebraska. Literally, all you had to do was beat an injured Iowa team that is one of the worst teams defensively I've ever seen, and they couldn't do that. Fred Hoiberg, I think it's time to move on from Fred Hoiberg. It's just not working out. Um, Definitely a very disappointing end to a Nebraska team that played really well, has a lot of talent, especially with Bryce Williams and Jawan Gary, but it's not happening. It's just not happening. So, anywho, um, yeah, Navy defeated Bucknell in the Patriot League semifinals. They will be facing American in the championship game for the Patriot League. They American defeated Colgate, so it will be between the Navy Midshipmen and the American University Eagles. This is very likely for a 16 seed. Navy would be getting in if they ended up beating American, would be entering the tournament with a losing record and very likely in the first four. So in Dayton, so definitely another matchup to keep your eye on. Lipscomb defeated North Alabama 76 to 65. Lipscomb, I think, is a 15, 14, perhaps, if I had to make a guess on where they're going to be seated. Um, currently, currently, they're actually a 13, which is a little bit higher than I would have anticipated, but it also depends on how the rest of the field is. Um, but yeah, congratulations to Lipscomb. Joe Anderson had 23 points, three blocks. Um, he's been playing pretty good ball lately. I know he averages like 13, I think 13, is that right? No, 12. Okay. No, 12 points per game, but he's been playing really well as of late. So another guy that you can I believe he's a grad senior. Yeah, he's averaged, yeah, he had 28 in the quarterfinals, 25 in the semifinals, and 23 in the finals. So he's been red hot as of late. Definitely a guy you should keep your eye on come tournament time. Drake defeated Bradley in the Missouri Valley Conference tournament final, entering the tournament in Ben McCollum's first year at 30 and 3, 17 and 3 in the Missouri Valley, winning over Bradley. This was a really good defensive game for Drake. Um, the refs definitely were not the best in this one. They definitely missed some calls down the stretch, especially a very weird dead ball technical foul that I still can't really wrap my head around. But even still, Drake shut down Bradley, even though the Braves were hitting some threes in the second half. It was really too late. Um, because Bennett Sturts, a guy who I keep talking about guys who are going to be, uh, especially with mid majors come tournament time, like Drake and Bennett Sturts. Like you, if you don't already know that name, you will know that name come tournament time because Drake is another pretty popular upset pick, I believe, depending obviously on who they face. But um, they are very aggressive. They are very physical. Um, let's yeah um it's really interesting to see, um especially with all those players transferring from division 2 to division 1, when Ben McCollum ended up taking the Drake job, and just also that team camaraderie is already there, and the fact that they're talented enough and are able to show that they are able to win, especially against a team like Bradley, who is no slouch. Like Bradley is a really, really good team. Had Bradley won, it was very likely that this would be a two bid league because I think Drake would have been in at large regardless. But Drake, um, there was a tweet from March, from like the official March Madness account, where they tweeted like Drake is dancing again, and it immediately reminded me of the thing, like the shit tweets that like Israel tweets out, like "We will dance again," because of like, like. So I ended up tweeting that like Israel when Drake visits Tel Aviv because I don't know Drake's stance on Israel Palestine, but like I assume it's not good. So but it was just a pretty funny joke that I had in my mind. So anyway, that being said, um, believe those are the results from today, Sunday. There was also, I believe, an automatic bid clinched yesterday, which was, if I can find it, if I seriously, I where where is it? Oh my gosh. Okay. I can't. It's seriously, this is ridiculous. Every time I have it up, it's like, what? Where? Where did it go? But anyway, um, I should also say, as I'm searching this, um, Indiana defeated Ohio State. I just wanted to say that, um, because oh yeah, wow, that was loud. Oh yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about. SIU Edwardsville ended up winning their conference tournament. That's the other team. Um, yeah, that was the other team. 69-48 over Southeast Missouri State in the Ohio Valley Conference. Likely a 16 seed, but the funny part is SIU Edwardsville ended up losing to Green Bay early on in this season. So Doug Gottlieb has a win over an NCAA tournament team, which is pretty funny. Um, it's also pretty funny because Green Bay has the same amount of wins against NCAA tournament teams as North Carolina does, which is also pretty funny. I'll get to North Carolina and Duke in a little bit, but congratulations to SIU Edwardsville. That was the other game that I wanted to talk about. Also, UC Irvine and UC San Diego both won. So UC San Diego wins the Big West officially, 18-2. Congratulations to UC San Diego. It's going to be that again. I'm telling you, that Big West championship is going to be a dogfight. Um, so make sure to keep your eyes on that. But before, yeah, I mean, rest in peace, Texas. Oklahoma, a big win for them, especially since they are in the last four in. Uh, Definitely put themselves in the NCAA tournament with that win, despite being 6-12 in the SEC. It's because the bubble is so weak. Oklahoma is likely to get in, and Texas. Look, I love Trey Johnson. I've loved watching him play this year. I cannot defend. I cannot defend this performance. 0 of 14, 0 for 4 from 3, 7 points against an Oklahoma team at home. I mean, Jordan Pope had a great game at 21 points, but like, dude, Trey Johnson in 34 minutes, you score 7 points. That, yeah, no. No. Also, breaking news for any football fans: Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills have agreed to a 6-year, $330 million contract. So the MVP is getting paid. Um, will they beat Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs? Maybe. I just, I just want a different AFC team in the Super Bowl. Like, is that too much to ask for? Um, anyway, so speaking of the bubble, just gonna go around a little bit. Uh, Georgia had pretty much gotten themselves off the bubble at this point. According to Joe Lenardi, Georgia is currently a 10 seed, and they definitely, with the win against Vanderbilt, have put themselves in the tournament. I don't think either. I think both Vanderbilt and Georgia are definitely in the tournament. Although Vanderbilt has struggled as of late, they have lost. They lost to Arkansas at home, and then they lost to Georgia, but they still have enough wins to get them into the tournament. Enough really good wins in a pretty packed SEC, so there's no way they miss out on it. I mean, Vanderbilt currently is a 9 seed. They they would face UConn, which would be a very interesting matchup. But UConn also got their revenge over Seton Hall, closing out the year pretty strong. So I got to hand it to UConn a little bit, but until they play better competition that isn't a Big East team, we'll see. I say that aside from a team like St. John's because St. John's is actually really good. So um, but I guess the win over Creighton was pretty good too. So um, that being said, let's move on to the ranked matchups because those were very, very interesting. I was wrong on this. Auburn loses at home to Alabama. They're going into the SEC tournament on a two-game losing streak. Now, is that going to get them off the number one overall seed? Like maybe, probably because Duke won, which I'll get into that in a second. But yeah, losing two in a row is not really going to help you. And Auburn actually looks pretty vulnerable on the defensive end. Um, Alabama was shooting a lot better in this one. Grant Nelson had a huge game at 23 points. He hit three threes as well, despite not shooting well basically all year. Cliff Amori had went 7 of 7. I think all of them were dunks too. LeBaron Philon hit some big shots, and then not a ton of bench scoring, and especially Mark Sears not having a big scoring game at 9 points, but he did hit the game winning floater. He hit the game winning floater. And after Auburn tied it, Janai Broom had a monster game at 34 points, but only Todd Pettiford and Miles Kelly scored in double figures aside from that. So they weren't getting a ton of scoring elsewhere. So yeah, Auburn this was a back and forth game. I think Dick Vitale actually called it going into overtime with like 4 minutes left. So yeah, he was right. He still got his predictions going. So um, and yeah, what a win for Alabama. Because after they lost to Florida, I was like, there's no way they beat Auburn on the road. Like, there's no way. And then it was like, Alabama just won against Auburn on the road. No, Auburn, number one Auburn. Like, oh my God. Oh man, this SEC tournament is going to decide a lot. I actually don't know what the hell to expect, especially determining like the 1 and 2 lines because the SEC tournament, and I guess what happens with Houston and Duke in their respective conference tournaments, that's also going to determine a lot. So um, anyway, Duke, Carolina, this was a must win for North Carolina. Like absolutely no doubt. They needed to get this win. They were entering, I believe they entered the day either 1-9 or 1-10 and against quad one opponents. And they lost. They lost at home to Duke. So now North Carolina, they pretty much just have to win the ACC tournament. Um, because yeah, currently they're the second team out. Boise State also in the first four out is the last team out. Um, North Carolina had their opportunities. They really did. I didn't catch the second half live because my uncle and I were actually at the Bright Ice concert in Atlanta, which was really, really awesome to see. Hooray for the Riff Raff open for them. So if you're interested in indie rock or Americana or alternative, like really good show, really good show. Cannot recommend it enough. They were fantastic. Connor Oberst is a musical genius, so uh, definitely recommend it. But North Carolina, despite being down like 16 in the first half, ended up coming back, made it a 1 point game at halftime. RJ Davis was hitting so many shots. And then North Carolina ended up taking like a 7 point lead. But then for some reason, Roy Williams took him out, and Duke just went on a run and won the game from there. Um, I mean, that's coaching malpractice. I mean, Cooper Flag also, like, he made a lot of really great decisions in this game. And despite not shooting very well, he still made some winning plays. And he was dishing it out when he needed to. He had 6 assists in this game. Sion James also had eight. He had 8 rebounds, had 16 points. Tyrese Proctor had 16. Con Knipple had 17. I mean, this Duke team just has so many weapons. It's unreal. And so even when they were down by 7 in a hostile environment against a desperate North Carolina team, and again, the saying in when bubble teams, are playing highly ranked teams at home, like desperate teams become dangerous teams. But North Carolina just kind of rolled over and died after he took for some reason Hubert Davis took RJ Davis out of the game, and it just made no sense looking back on it. Like I was watching replays of the game, and it's just like Duke immediately took over when that happened because aside from Van Allen Lubin, like he also I think was taken out of the game when he was hitting some shots, and no one else was in double figures. It's just mind-boggling. So North Carolina did miss their opportunity to get into the NCAA tournament. They may have another one come the ACC tournament, but I'm not holding my breath for them. So, and then a few games I don't have much to say about. I'll just run down the list. Iowa State defeated Kansas State, getting their revenge. 73 to 57. Curtis Jones had 24 points. So Iowa does bounce back after losing to BYU as well. They're probably on the 3 line. Same with Texas Tech, who defeated Arizona State 85 to 57. Although Texas Tech, I believe, has a bit of a better path if they were to get a 2 seed. Be more likely than Iowa State, I think. But even still, both really good teams, and I think both of them right now would be on the 3 line. Florida defeated Ole Miss, so Florida right now they would probably be. Oh man, that's a tough call because I know Alabama. Even though I know Alabama just beat Auburn, but I still think they're like the number 5 overall seed, so they'd be a 2. Because Florida did beat Alabama on the road, and then they beat Ole Miss, so pretty convincingly too, 90 to 71. Walter Clayton, 23 points, 8 assists. Tennessee, I think, is on the 2 line pretty much after losing to Ole Miss as well. So Tennessee wins 75 to 65 over South Carolina. A bit of just a kind of a nothing game almost. Like there's just nothing much to say about it. I've said my piece on Tennessee. Depends on which offensive team shows up, and that's how far Tennessee will go in the NCAA tournament. Houston won against Baylor in um, a pretty big game for Baylor. I know they're on the last four byes just because the bubble is so weak, but like this could have been a pretty big opportunity to solidify them as a tournament team, and they just sort of they played well in the first half. They, had a lead at halftime, but LJ Cryer once again had 23 points. I would like to see though VJ Edgecombe in the NCAA tournament. I feel like a lot of people aren't as familiar with VJ Edgecombe, but um, you'll understand why he's an NCAA or an NBA draft prospect if he plays well because that dude is talented as hell. So um, yeah, St. John's beats Marquette 86 to 84 in overtime. Oh my God, this was a game for the ages. This just showed why. I mean, Marquette played better, even though they're probably going to be unranked after losing to uh, both UConn and St. John's. Two wins that could have improved their NCAA tournament resume. Right now, I feel like Marquette is on the 8 line at this point. They have been slipping this entire season. Um, Looking at it right now, Marquette is a 7 according to Lenardi, but I would put them more as like an 8. At the same time, though, St. John's, even though they're not a good 3 point shooting team overall, not a ton of Rick Pitino teams are, and yet they hit when they did hit 3 pointers, they were very very timely. And RJ Lewis especially hit three. Simeon Wilcher hit one. Zuby Ejiofor hit a three in this one. And speaking of Zuby Ejiofor, he hit the game winner in overtime after Chase Ross ended up fumbling it on the rebound. Uh, because like Marquette had some great performances from Cam Jones and David Joplin, but Chase Ross just had a kind of I mean, he had some highlights in this one. He had a dunk and he also hit a big 3 pointer, but at the same time, he also like tweaked his, I believe it was his ankle or he cramped up, and then a few moments later he just ended up losing that rebound and Zuby Ejiofor hit that shot. So tough loss for Marquette, but St. John's just continues to find ways to win, even though defensively it wasn't the best game they've had this year. Far from it, but even when that happens, like they can still win. Like it's pretty crazy how well this St. John's team is just been improving throughout the year. Um, and they've a team. They're a team I've been pretty high on, even when they ended up losing to Baylor in the Baha Mar early on this year, which seems like 2 seasons ago in that classic game. Um, they've been improving even when they lost to Georgia. Like Georgia's turned out to be a pretty good team. I mean, their only two losses since then have been to Creighton and Villanova, like and both on the road. So yeah, great year for St. John's, great win for St. John's. They've just been outstanding and cannot wait to see them in the NCAA tournament. And that defense is just going to be magnificent to watch. So both Clemson and Louisville won. So had Duke lost, both of all three of those teams would have shared the ACC regular season title. But yeah, not a ton to say about either game. The ACC is just bad right now. It's only Duke, Clemson, and Louisville in the NCAA tournament for the ACC. Um, no other team right now deserves to be, not even North Carolina. You cannot be 1-11 or 1-10 in the against quad one opponents and expect to get in. Like, I'm sorry, that's just not how it works. Okay. Um, yeah, I just can't defend North Carolina. I've always been very bullish on North Carolina. So I just no. I'm not I'm not about that. I'm not about that. So anyway, with that, let's get on to oh my God. I said this before. All right. I've said this before. Wisconsin. I don't trust Wisconsin in March. I have been screwed over by Wisconsin so many times in the NCAA tournament, okay? When filling out brackets, this should be every indicator uh, to be on red alert when seeing who Wisconsin's paired up with. You cannot lose at home to Penn State by double digits. I know Penn State does have talent, right? But like this is inexcusable. This is a bad loss for Wisconsin, especially when you hold Ace Baldwin to only 8 points. Um, who's Penn State's best player? You should not lose by double digits. That's how you know you really fucked up. And Wisconsin, oh my God. I mean, 10 for 31 from three. This team shoots a ton of threes. But again, their 3-point defense is not very good. Like they're a good inside defensive team, especially when Crowell and Winter can get going. But man, when you have DeMarco Dunn having getting a 25-point game against you, like something really went wrong. And but this is just Greg Gard. I'm sorry, but I've never like I know he made back-to-back Sweet 16s when he first uh filled in for Bo Ryan, right? Outside of that, he hasn't he hasn't made it to the second weekend. And I don't think this team's going to. If they do, I will eat crow on it, but like I'm just not impressed. Like seriously, I've complained about Wisconsin's offense before. I think I just think they're very inconsistent. And I just don't like they're kind of like Oregon in the same style where I just don't quite understand their offensive system. And as I said before, like but I do trust Dana Altman more than I do Greg Gard. I will say that much. But that this is just a terrible loss, and I've kind of figured this was Wisconsin's. But I mean, giving up 51 points in the second half to Penn State when you're going for a double bye in the Big Ten tournament is diabolical. That's pretty bad. So, Wisconsin loses. Maryland wins. They beat Northwestern 74-61. So I believe, as of right now, the top four seeds in the Big Ten tournament are. Um, well, actually, let me look at the standings. It's Michigan State, who I'll talk about in a second. Um, yeah, Maryland, Michigan, and is it Wisconsin or is it UCLA or is it Purdue? It might be UCLA if I had to take a guess because they did beat USC. Um, I mean, yeah. So, hmm, okay, maybe not. I mean, they said they got a buy, so maybe Wisconsin still got the buy or got the double buy. Um, but still, I know like, but again, even still, like that's not very good, right? Um, I guess it still remains to be seen. Um, yeah, I still don't know who has the other double bye. I know it's Michigan State, Michigan, and Maryland, but I don't know who the other team is because they have three teams at 13 and 7. So I guess it just comes down to tiebreakers in some way. But there have been, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I'm going to move on from that. But yeah, Maryland ended up winning that one. Kentucky defeated Missouri 91-83. Missouri's been struggling after defeating Alabama, putting up 110 on them. I think they've only won one game since then, and that was against South Carolina. So Missouri's taken a bit of a tumble. Kentucky, especially now that Lamont Butler's back, they're finally getting into a bit of a rhythm, even without Jackson Robinson. Andrew Carr's been playing a lot better as well, had 16 points, 12 rebounds. Kentucky's getting hot at the right time, definitely. So I'll be definitely interested to see how how Kentucky ends up. I'm going to be interested to see how a lot of the SEC tournament goes before making a big call on it. But Kentucky is playing better. than they had been, and especially now that they're healthier, I definitely believe that um, they should at least win their first round game. I don't think they'll pull a St. Peter's or an Oakland this year, um, but anyway, uh, that also does remain to be seen. So Texas A&M did not have a letdown game. They beat LSU 66 to 52, so they go into the SEC tournament on a high after defeating Auburn and getting a road win against LSU. BYU ends off the year or it's off the regular season on a high, beating rival Utah 85 to 74. Again, another team that is basically all offense, not much defense. Same with a lot of SEC teams like Missouri, Kentucky, Florida, Alabama. Um, yeah, so very interested to see how BYU does in the Big 12 tournament, especially with teams like Arizona and Houston and Baylor and all those all those teams. So again, Kansas as well. We'll say like Hunter Dickinson, yes, he is playing a lot better. Zeke Mayo had 20 points. Yeah, Hunter Dickinson had 33 as well. Kansas was up pretty big in this one, and then Arizona definitely definitely played a lot better in the second half. They were hitting a lot more shots. Jaden Bradley had a really good game at 21. Caleb Love, 16 points. I I will say this again. I don't trust Arizona as far as I can throw them. They're like Wisconsin. I don't trust Tommy Lloyd in the NCAA tournament. Um, yes, Kansas got this win. They went. I predicted they'd go 2-1 in the last three. It was a little. I mean, I got the Arizona game right at least, but like, um, I still like. That doesn't mean that Kansas is. Again, I don't think Arizona is that good of a basketball team. Um, so it really does depend on. I mean, be, play a real team and we'll see what happens. Like the Big 12 tournament should decide some of that. I just have a feeling that this is going to be the exact same result as last season. So, because they're very one dimensional, and Hunter Dickinson, yes, he had a pretty good game, but um, there have been many times where he has been not very good this year. So, very, very overrated. Yeah, yeah, I know he's been playing better, but like they still went 1-2 when he had three of his best games this year. So, and the one win was against an Arizona team that I'm not a big fan of. So, speaking of a team that is slumping down the stretch, Mississippi State has lost 4 of 5 to in the regular season. They are um, they're going to be facing LSU in the first round. Just lost to Arkansas 93 to 92. So Arkansas pretty much is safely in the tournament right now. So John Calipari is in the tournament, which was not looking very likely after that like 5 game losing streak. They'll play South Carolina, I believe. Yeah, I mean, yeah, Mississippi State is definitely on the struggle bus right now. So there's a chance if they end up losing to South Carolina somehow again that they could kind of find themselves like they'll still make the tournament, but like maybe on the bubble a little bit. Like that's how badly they've been struggling. So we'll see how that ends up going, but the more I watch Mississippi State, they have talent, but at the same time, it's just like they've lost a lot of games that they've either been pretty close in or they've just gotten blown out to teams like Alabama. Like they've lost to Texas. They lost to freaking Texas, who just lost at home again to Oklahoma. Like I don't again another team that I don't really trust is this Mississippi State team. So that's something else to consider. So anyway, with Indiana, they were trailing a lot in this one, but uh, like it looked really bad, and Ohio State was getting uh was killing us from the three, and I mean Devin Royal and John Mobley and Bruce. I mean Bruce Thornton really did not have a great game. He's never really played that well against Indiana, but to know that Indiana swept Ohio State, another bubble team, putting themselves strictly on the last four buys now, that is a really good sign. So Indiana is probably either a 10 or 11 at this point. They're in the same category as like Arkansas and Baylor and Utah State. Um, so that's going to be a pretty interesting, especially how they do in the Big Ten tournament. I think they're in regardless whether or not they lose to Oregon, but um, I would like to beat Oregon just to get revenge for one, and then also make it so that it's pretty much a certainty that they're in the tournament. But oh, I feel a little bit better now, especially that they beat Ohio State because I mean Trey Galloway hit that like insane clutch three, like falling, like fading away. It was at like near the top of the key, but even still, um, and Mike Woodson retiring after this year, quote unquote retiring. At least he won his final game in Assembly Hall, and hopefully they can get another win, maybe get to a 20-win season. That'd be pretty nice. So anyway, yeah, that's about all I have right now. So um, yeah, that's, I mean, it's gonna continue to pick back up this week. So I'm very excited to see the conference tournaments continue to happen. I'll have hopefully one or two more episodes before tournament time, and then once the tournament starts, I will have some bracket breakdowns. I'll have like a perfect bracket um, thing going for you all. So we'll see. It's definitely not going to be clickbait. So anyway, um, but with that said, thank you all so much for listening and enjoy your week and get ready for some Selection Sunday. Get ready for some March Madness because it's arriving. So, anyway, thanks again, y'all, and I will see you all next time. Oh, actually, we are not done because in the midst of that, I forgot completely to talk about Michigan State. So, Michigan State sweeps Michigan 79 to 62. This was another instance where where Michigan they ran through their two bigs, Danny Wolf and Vladislav Golden, and no one else did anything. Michigan is a again as I said before, like Michigan is a team that is a very popular going to be a very popular upset pick because their guards are trash. They have great bigs, but they are wearing down, especially Danny Wolf, who looked absolutely exhausted in this game. And Michigan State, with their depth and everything, especially with Trey Holloman having 20 points off the bench, Jace Richardson at 18, Cohen Carr made some more highlight plays. And yeah, just another really great win for Michigan State. And then Michigan tried to start like a fight at midcourt after Michigan State was doing their usual like senior day celebrations where they would kiss the home court logo. Just a Michigan and half court or at midfield or half court like incidents. Uh, they're running pretty high. So this is kind of the same deal with Michigan State and Michigan, as I've said before. Michigan State is really good. Michigan is not, and the result was this game. So the actual ending to this podcast is now. So just wanted to mention that. Yeah, as I said, hope you all have a good weekend or weekend, whatever. I'm tired. It's getting a little late. Goodbye.